Hey guys, so today I want to talk about climbing roses. What we have here is a Gertrude Jekyll climbing rose from David Austin. Now we ordered 3 of these in 2-quart containers, and I'll show a picture of what they actually looked like when we got them. They were no more than a foot tall. But here we are, fast forward to September, and you can see these guys have put on some amazing growth. They get to about 8 to 10 feet tall, and right now you can see they're pretty much pushing the maximum growth that they're going to put on. We were fortunate enough to see some blooms on this guy. One thing to remember is that first year climbing roses don't put on as many blooms as a second year climbing rose. Heading into the second year for spring, what we want to do is we want to train these guys onto a fence, and we're going to show you how to do that on a fence, an obelisk, a trellis, or anything upright you want these climbing roses to grow on. We're going to show you how to do that by horizontally bending these canes to get the maximum bloom out of your climbing roses. Alright guys, so as we get started training these roses to climb, the first thing you want to do is identify your main canes on your rose, which ones you're going to use to actually put up against your fence, your trellis or obelisk, or any upright structure that you want to have your climbing roses grow on. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around and identify any of the canes that we're not going to use. For instance, these right here that are sticking out, there's no reason to have these, so we're going to go ahead and take this off here. You see this one here that's a little bit smaller than the others and starting not to look as healthy on the bottom. You want to get rid of that as well. And then we have one more over here that we're going to get rid of. Now what I have here is 4 main canes. Now when I'm going up the 4 main canes, I'm looking for any growth that's not growing against the fence. It's actually growing away from the fence. So for instance, this one, now this is going to be hard for somebody to do, but this is the best thing to do for these climbing roses. Just get rid of any horizontal growth that's coming out the side of the rose to give more energy to the main canes once you start getting these on the fence here. So now that we identified our 4 main canes, now what we want to do is figure out which ones we're going to use at what levels on the fence. So when I talk about levels, is for instance this one right here is probably the lowest that I have here. So what I'm going to do is I want to grab this one and basically just train it horizontally against the fence right here. This one's a little bit taller. We can go another level here, and then the other ones will just continue to do the same thing. Now we have one that's going straight up. Want to have that one grow up against the house onto the garage there. Alright guys, so what we're going to do is we're going to grab the first cane that we want to use to go along the fence here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bend this as horizontal as we possibly can. Now what I'm going to use is I'm going to use twine. You can use zip ties, you can use wire, you can use whatever you want. Just know that when you actually tie this, you don't want to tie it so tight as to choke the stem, because these canes are going to get a little bit thicker and you want them to have some room to grow. Now when I use the twine here, I already fed it through my fence. It'll be easier if you have a trellis, but I fed it through my fence only because I have to go around the backside and come around the front to get it to tie on there. Now the reason we're doing it horizontally is these roses have perpetual dominance. What perpetual dominance means is that it has a tendency to grow upright and basically outcompete the rest of the rose to grow blooms. Now if you have these climbing roses just grow completely straight up, you're only going to get blooms on top because they're searching for the sun. By doing them horizontally like this, you're going to encourage growth coming from the cane here going towards the sun. So you're going to have shoots coming up all along the horizontal cane searching for that sun, which will give you more blooms in return. And that's what you want to do, and that's the reason why we're going to go horizontal, is to get that growth to start shooting up horizontally from the blooms. And we'll get the rest of our canes and do that here as well. Alright guys, so now that we have our first cane going horizontally against the fence, what I did was I basically tied every so often, that way it stays in the shape that we want it to stay. Again, it's a little bit more difficult working along the fence because I have to feed it through, bring it back around, and then tie it up. But like I said, you do want to leave it loose to get that cane to grow. It's going to grow about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch diameter. Over the course of about 2 to 3 years, it's going to get pretty thick, and you want that to be able to stretch and actually expand the way it needs to. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm picking out which canes I want to use for the next layers of growth. One thing you want to avoid is having any crisscrossing at the bottom, so they don't rub against each other and create any unhealthy scratching. As you can see right here, there's a little bit of scratching here because this one was growing crisscross to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this one out of the way and have this one go to our mid layer, and then this one right here go up to our top layer. Alright, so this one here is a little bit longer, so we want to grab this one and bring it over to the very top and start horizontally bending that one for our top layer here. As we're going to do that, we're going to tack it right here with some twine, and then we're going to bend it as much as we can to go over to the top layer. This one right here by itself, we're going to have that one just trained up against the wall here. Alright, so here we have our tallest cane. This is the one we're going to put along the top of the fence. We're just going to tie that one up again horizontally here. Alright, now this last cane we have right here, it's a little bit farther out from the rest of them. So what we're going to do is this one is the one we're going to want to train going up the garage here. And then as it gets taller, we're going to train it to go horizontally across the top of the garage to have a nice bloom of roses going that way as well. So what I want to do, because it sticks out so much, is I'm going to tie it as close as I possibly can to the wall here. And that'll get it to start growing this way. And then from here we're going to bend it straight up going up the gutter here. That way when it starts to completely grow, we'll just get it to train right across there. Again, you don't want to go too tight, giving it plenty of room to expand the cane once it starts to grow a little bit thicker and up tall. Alright, so now that we got all of our canes up against the fence here, as you can see, most of them are going horizontally. This is going straight up again. This is bent horizontally this way, so it'll encourage more shoots to grow here and produce some blooms up top. Same thing for this one. As it gets longer, we'll continue to train it this way. And this one's already pretty long, so we're pretty happy and satisfied with that one. But again, as it's growing up here, it's gonna search for the sun and produce some shoots going up and produce those blooms from those spots there. So hopefully in time we're going to have a nice wall of blooms come spring next year. Now, one question that we did get the other day was why my climbing roses aren't blooming and it looks like such a mess. With those, what you want to do is you want to search for any crossing stems or canes at the bottom to make sure that it's not cutting off and creating any type of wounds in the roses, and therefore keeping it from blooming as much. Another thing is all the old wood. If you have an older climbing rose that's been there for some time, you want to go ahead and get rid of that old wood and just basically just retrain it and get the new canes to grow back up and train those to go where you want them to go, so that way they produce more blooms on the newer canes and get rid of the old stuff, like I said. Alright guys, now that we're done, we're gonna go around and just cut off the excess twine, or if you're using zip ties, just cut off that excess zip tie. Alright guys, now that we're done with that, absolutely happy with the way this came out. We're excited to get this going and have some beautiful blooms along this fence. It's a quick and easy way to get your roses to train and start climbing again up against a fence or a trellis or the obelisk. We're extremely happy and we're excited to see this one bloom. It's going to be absolutely amazing. The fragrance that this rose gives is absolutely wonderful, and we're excited to see the cups of this rose and how it grows up against this fence here. Alright guys, now that we're done training our climbing rose to grow along this fence here, one thing I do want to address is the fact that this rose is in a container. Now, we don't have a permanent residence. This is a temporary garden, and we like to keep these in a container. That way we don't get them in the ground. Now, if you want better performance, in the ground it's going to completely take off and grow sporadically. It'll be amazing. The reason we keep them in containers, again, like I said, we move around a lot. We're here every 3 years. We move different homes. So keeping it in containers is probably going to be best for us. And you can do this also with the climbing roses. Keep it in a container. Just make sure it's a big enough container to give it enough room to grow. As you can see, this is a container. It's absolutely grown to amazing size. So again, keeping it in a container would be good, but putting it in the ground is probably going to be best. If you have a permanent home, it'll have those canes grow completely to its maximum height. But we're fairly satisfied with what's going on here. We're happy. We're excited to see the blooms on this rose. It has a wonderful fragrance and a wonderful cup, and we're definitely excited to have this wall full of roses come next spring. So that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys in the next video.